it's your international writing mentor, Jim Parsons, with my course, Write That Novel Now. If this is your first encounter with this YouTube course and me, I recommend you go back to lesson 1 and work your way through. This is lesson 20. Work your way through, because it is a structured course designed to take you step by step through the writing process. It's not meant to be just taken willy-nilly wherever you feel there might be something interesting. So go back to the start, have a look, and we're currently up to dialogue, writing dialogue, and specifically now to punctuating dialogue, the correct punctuation. We started that last lesson, lesson 19. If you missed that, please try and pick it up, because I'm building on that lesson. That lesson was looking at just the straight punctuation of a single sentence, a standalone piece of dialogue with no tags. Once we've got that in place, now we can move on to adding things. For example, we're going to look at adding an action tag before the dialogue, quite distinct from a dialogue tag. And then we're going to look at adding tags before and after the piece of dialogue. So that's today. Let's get right into it. Punctuating dialogue part 2. Have you done that self-test? There it is. If you want to stop the video now and do it, that's fine. Come right back, and here are the answers. Eat slowly is, of course, a command, and so it takes an exclamation mark. We get that in place, and then we simply put the quote marks on either side of the command. Okay, I'm using double quotes throughout here. The next one, can you swim, obviously is a question, so we get that question mark in, capital letter, and then simply put quote marks front and back. The third one is a statement. You'll find a dentist in Barker Street. Did anyone notice there was no capital on street in the test question? So I hope you remembered to put it in. Once we've established that it's just a statement and it only needs full stop, slash, period, then you can put your quote marks either side. And the last one, of course, how delightful, is an exclamation. Exclamations take an exclamation mark. There it is, capital at the start. And when you've got the sentence correct, quote marks. Simple. So easy to do. And that's our basis. That's where we start all of this. We can build on this. Let's work now on an action tag. Again, it's dead easy. So simple. You take that untagged piece of dialogue. You're very familiar with them now. Quote marks either side. And you add a statement in front of it that clarifies who will be doing the talking. And I said statement. So what does a statement finish with? Always it finishes with a full stop, slash, period. Let's have a look. Remember, eat slowly, that was the command. Let's give it some context. Mother jabbed me in the ribs. Eat slowly. Okay, action tag tells us who's going to speak. It's clear it's not me who got jabbed in the ribs that's speaking. It's mother who's speaking, and she tells him to eat slowly. Can you swim was that question. It stands on its own there, you see. And all we have to do is inform it in some way with something else. Paul saw my terrified expression as he was about to dive into the torrent. Can you swim? A bit late, isn't it, to think about it? Now, it's a statement, even if it's a very long one, and so it gets a period, full stop there at the end. And I threw this one in because I wanted you to be certain that these action tags don't have to be little short ones of 2 and 3 words, okay? They can be lengthy. The dialogue that is actually a statement in itself, you'll find a dentist in Barker Street. We can inform this one a little bit, give it some context. The man pointed to the right. Statement, full stop. You'll find a dentist in Barker Street. So they're great, these action tags. You don't have to add anything else. Now, it's possible to add something, and many people like to do it, but it's not necessary. Let's have a look at the Paul one. Paul saw my terrified expression as he was about to dive into the torrent. Can you swim, he said. Can you swim, he asked. Right? He yelled. Yes, you could put that on the end, but it's not necessary. All the information your reader needs to know who's saying, can you swim, is packed in very nicely there in that action tag. That final one, the man pointed to the right. You'll find a dentist in Barker Street, he said. You could say that, sounds fine, but it's not needed. And remember I said that you need to get a nice bit of variety. So if you've been saying he said, she said for a while, here's your opportunity. Throw in the action tag and forget about putting anything on the end. Sarah clasped the bouquet to her chest. How delightful. So we've got context now of what actually is delightful. And I keep stressing that that action tag, which is a statement, finishes with the correct piece of punctuation, which is a full stop or period. I want to stress this, it's never a comma. A comma is dead wrong. Mother jabbed me in the ribs, comma, eat slowly. Now, why is it wrong? It's because the comma means that the whole thing is one sentence. And that's basically treating the action tag as if it was a dialogue tag, something that tells you who actually said the words. And it doesn't. A dialogue tag has some mention of speech, said, shouted, whispered. It gives you some idea of speech coming out of someone's mouth, right? These don't. Mother jabbed me in the ribs. Mother is not uttering any words in that part of the sentence. Paul saw my terrified expression. Paul is seeing, he's not uttering words at this point that you can connect to can you swim. The man pointed to the right. There's no speech there. There's no words coming out of his finger. Sarah clasped the bouquet to her chest. Her chest is not saying the words. Okay? These are statements that finish with a full stop. Make sure you don't make this awful mistake of connecting action tags with a comma. Want to try your hand at a self-test? There they are. I've left out a lot of the punctuation. I've left out capitals. So if you'd like to do this, switch me off. I'm sure it'll be a pleasure. Hit the pause button, get out some paper and have a go at them. And when you're ready, I'll just here twiddling my thumbs. Oh, you're back. Good. Let's proceed. Here's the answers. Marcy rolled her eyes. Statement, full stop. Opening quotes. Don't forget the apostrophe because he's is short for he is. Right? It's an elision, a piece left out, and we show that with an apostrophe. He's the stupidest man I know. Not a question, that's a statement, so it gets a full stop, or in other words, a period. Closing quote. Number 2, Pete was on his feet in an instant. Full stop because it's a statement. Now, this is a bit tricky. We open our quotes, don't forget a capital. I forgot to mention capital in the other one. Don't forget capital, come on. Now, that's a command, isn't it? So I've given it an exclamation mark. Let's go, full stop, closing quote mark. Now, all the smarties among you will be saying, but Jim, isn't let's go a command also? Yes, it is. You're right. And in fact, we could have exclamation mark after let's go. That'd be 2 in a row. Getting a bit too many. You can do it. Alternatively, you can leave it as I've got it here. Or third option, Treat it as a sentence and join them with a comma. Come on, let's go. So comma after come on, and then exclamation mark after let's go. So there's often several ways you can approach something like that. Moving on to 3. Dr. Limpton was outraged. Good statement, full stop. Opening quote, capital W for who? Who suggested you should inject yourself with disinfectant? Question, isn't it? It's a question. Put a question mark, close your quote. Last one. Molly always had a ready excuse. Statement about Molly, full stop. Opening quotes. Don't forget your capital W. Well, if I had known earlier, close your quotes. Now you notice I've highlighted it. After well, there is a comma. There are lots of little words like this and even phrases which really don't impact on the sentence. They sort of ease your way into the sentence and they're not necessary. And so we chop them off with a comma. Words like well, okay, yes, however, therefore, and even phrases like holy cow, they're all chopped off by a comma. Okay, I think that's enough. Okay, we've dealt with punctuating dialogue where the dialogue just stands all on its own. We've looked at that same dialogue where we put an action tag on the front of it that tells us who's about to speak. Now let's look at the standard garden variety dialogue tag that we see everywhere. John said, he said, all those sorts of things. And with these standard tags, as you'd be well aware, there are 3 places we'll find them, 3 positions. We'll find them after the dialogue. Hello there, John said. Or before the dialogue. John said, hello there. I hope you know, John said, that this is one of the best cafes in the town. Okay, we have broken that dialogue midpoint, inserted something. Now we're going to leave those until next week because you're going to have enough to chew on without that. So let's see what we're going to do first after the dialogue. Let's do positioning the standard tag after the dialogue. And I'm using these old faithfuls because you've seen them now standing alone. You've seen them with an action tag in front of them. You must be familiar with their shape, their structure, the fact that those marks, those exclamation marks and question marks and full stops go inside the quote mark. That's what we're looking at. So what are we going to do when we put a tag after them? Well, I'm going to drop one off the list for the moment, and that is the statement down the bottom, because the other 3 are all treated identically. Okay, now this is what you do. For everything except statements, you just add the tag, no extra punctuation. Okay, so eat slowly, we know that's an order. Can you swim? That's a question. How delightful? That's an exclamation. All we do is add the tag. Put a space, of course, and then add the tag. Like I'm using she said. Eat slowly, she said. It's one sentence, so the word she is not capitalized because it's not starting a new sentence. So it just goes in there with a space. And of course, we end the sentence correctly with a full stop, period. Can you swim? She said. Same thing. Now, as you know, when it's a question, we're more likely to use the word ask. So I've changed this. Can you swim? The boy asked. And I'm demonstrating here, same story. You have no capital there on the, because it's all part of the same sentence. And end. The only time you're going to use a capital there is if the word would have had a capital anyway. So this proper noun, Mary, takes a capital, of course, and so that's the only time you would put. So have you got that pattern? All right. I'll return to she said. So you can see that whether it's a command, a question, or an exclamation, Same thing. You just stick she said or he said, the boy said, whatever, on the end of it, and then finish with a full stop. Now, you might be wondering, how delightful. It's an exclamation, isn't it? So why don't we say, how delightful, she exclaimed. Back in your primary school days, you may have had a teacher that was desperate to get you to use so many different types of tags. That's primary school. It's not writing school, okay? Why don't we do it? Why don't we say, how delightful, she exclaimed? Give your readers credit for some brains. If your reader can't tell that how delightful is someone exclaiming, there's something wrong. So you're telling the reader, not showing. If you show it, and then you have to tell them that they're exclaiming. Okay? Don't do it. It's one of the variations of telling instead of showing. All right, lecture finished, lecture over. Let's move on. We left tagging a statement till last because it's the one that's a little bit different. And it's not hard. There's our statement, familiar statement. You'll find a dentist in Barker Street, full stop, end quote marks, right? Full stop inside the quote marks. Now, what do we do with a statement? You change that full stop or period to a comma. And then you add the tag. Let's have a look at what it looks like. There it is. I've made the full stop red. And you can see that in the revised version, there is now a comma in its place inside the quote marks. And then we add, he said, full stop. Just to reinforce this, let's continue with the same idea. I hope he's a good one, comma, quotes, space, I said, full stop. He's my brother-in-law, comma, quote. The man replied, full stop. They are all statements. Now, just to, again, give you some practice at this, let's mix them up a little bit. I'll pause briefly and you have a think and try and second guess me. You did what? Okay, what is it? Question. What do we do with the question? Yep, we just stick that there on the end. He asked, full stop. Next one. You look lovely. It's a statement. I don't care how excited you sound when you say it. Oh, you look lovely. Right? It's still a statement because the full stop tells us it's a statement. So what do we have to do? Yeah, we have to change the full stop to a comma, put a space, and away we go with he said. What's get lost? It's a very rude command. What we do? Just add the tag. In this case, I've used Joanne yelled. Last one, a statement. It's too late to start a movie now. That's a statement. What do we do with a statement? Yeah, we change the full stop to a comma and then add the tag. Everybody happy with that? Good, then you won't mind doing a self-test, will you? I'm going to get you to add said Bill or Bill said. You know that's always a variation. And I'll talk about that further when we do the answers. So you can take your choice there. Bill said. Have a look down those. Hit the pause button and have a go at them. And then I'll come back with the answers. All right. That meter's definitely off. When we add said Bill or Bill said, it's a statement. It's a statement. So we change the full stop to the comma, and then we add said Bill, full stop. Life has changed forever. Statement. So we have to change the full stop to a comma Bill said. Okay, what's the difference between said Bill and Bill? You're going to find them, aren't you, all through every book. Now, I frankly much prefer Bill said. Sometimes you might need some variation, but Bill said to me is natural. When's the last time you had a friend say to you, "Oh, I saw Bill, life has changed forever," said Bill? We'd say, Bill said. In normal conversation, we'll give the person's name, Bill said. We don't say, said Bill, unless we're being cute. The other reason I don't like it is that immediately I'm put in mind of the old nursery tales. Every time I see said Bill, I hear said the little red hen, said Little Red Riding Hood, said the three little pigs. Now, you're not going to be able to unhear that. The next time you write said someone or other, you're going to hear that. You're going to hate it. Sure. Good grief. What have we got with good grief? Exclamation. Nothing changes in that. You just add said Bill or Bill said, full stop. Is the right bag? Question. Nothing changes, just add whatever Bill asked, full stop. Make sure you're getting these final full stops. In the rush, it's very easy to forget these things. Police, open up. That is a command, said Bill. If you're in Britain, it might be said the old Bill. I am happy that it's over. That's a statement. So change your full stop to the comma and add said Bill, full stop. And number 7 is a statement also. Here is the DVD you wanted. So in that case too, we change that full stop to a comma. We add Bill said, full stop. Now look, if you feel you haven't grasped this, please go over it again. Go back and play the video all through again. I want to move on, and we're moving on to putting these standard tags before the dialogue. Yes, punctuating dialogue with standard tags before the dialogue. This time the tag goes first. Simplicity itself. This time, all 4 of them behave identically. There they are, our familiar sentences, the 4 different types of sentences. When you place the tag before the dialogue, first, you start with the tag. That makes sense. 2, you add a comma and a space, and then you write the dialogue, just as if it were no tag at all. So starting with the tag, let's pretend the tag is one of these. Mary said, or the boy said. The woman smiled and said, because you can put an action in, that doesn't make it an action tag unless you don't say and said. If you just said the woman smiled, full stop, that's an action tag. The woman smiled and said is a dialogue tag. The man pointed left and said, that's a dialogue tag. So, okay, we're starting with a tag of your own devising. Next step, add the comma. Mary said, look at that, easy. Well, it's actually add a comma and a space, but it's a bit hard to see the space until you get something after it, isn't it? The boy said, just adding a comma. The woman smiled and said, just adding a comma. The man pointed left and said, couldn't get any simpler, could it? Last thing we do is add the piece of dialogue that we've always had as a standalone one or when there was an action tag. So start with the tag, add the comma and one space, and add the dialogue as if it were no tag. So simple. All good? Great. And you notice, going back to those, there's our 4 traditional sentences, standalone. And if you look, there's not a change there when you see those tagged on the end of that statement. Exactly the same. Before we conclude this lesson, I want to acknowledge that there are plenty of dialogues where there's more than one sentence. We've been dealing with simple little sentences, but sometimes the speaker will go on for several sentences, all within the one lot of quote marks. What do we do in a case like that? Okay, well, here's an example. Eat slowly. Do you want to choke? Oh, God, I don't know how many times my mother said that to me when I was a kid. All right, eat slowly. Do you want to choke? So this statement or this piece of dialogue is composed of a command followed by a question. The water's deep. Can you swim? We have a statement about, and that how delightful, we can add to that with, for me, how delightful. For me is a question. How delightful is an exclamation. So there are two types of sentences mixed up in one piece of dialogue. How do we deal with this? The best advice I can give you is to ignore what comes at the start and look at how the dialogue finishes. Because that's the one you need to make your tag reflect. Eat slowly. Do you want to choke? She said. Now, you can use said when it's a question, but we're probably more likely to say, do you want to choke? She asked. Next one. The water's deep. Can you swim? She asked. Now, you notice the water's deep is a statement. You wouldn't say she asked when it's a statement. But the last thing that the reader hears is, can you swim? And so you use the traditional ask tag. Okay? Look what happens when we reverse them. Can you swim? The water's deep. This time, you've got your statement last, and you can see the statement must change to reflect the fact that it's at the end and we're adding on a tag. So where can you swim didn't have to change at all, the water's deep has to have the comma, has to have. Can you swim? The water's deep, she said. Now, this business about whether to say she said or she asked, look what happens if you don't reflect the nature of the final sentence. Can you swim? The water's deep, she asked. It sounds crazy, doesn't it? The water's deep is a statement. You don't ask a statement. Doesn't matter whether can you swim was up there somewhere. You're too far away from it now. You have to reflect that final sentence. Can you swim? The water's deep, she asked. Sounds nuts. Even worse. Do you want to choke? Eat slowly, she asked. Eat slowly, she asked. No, work that way. So reflect the final sentence in your tag. Hope that makes sense. And the final one, for me, how delightful, she said. Yeah. And here you wouldn't say, for me, how delightful, she asked. If it was how delightful for me, then you could say she asked. Okay, all good? Great. Next week, we're not going to do it now. Next week, we're going to look at how you break into sentences or join sentences with a dialogue. That's a big one, and you really need to have this one absolutely buckled down before you attempt the next. So please go over it, make sure you understand this much so far. And to help you with that, I'm going to give you a self-test. When I flip the page, just pause the video, copy them all down. There's 20 questions. It'll take you a little while. Copy them down, one page of 20 questions. And your task is punctuate each of these sentences as dialogue. And be aware that all the capitals will be missing, as well as the quote marks and other punctuation in the middle, like commas after words. So 20 questions to see whether you've really mastered punctuating dialogue to this point before we move on. And if you want to check your answers, email me for the answer sheet. I can send you the answer sheet. You can mark your own work, and I'll give you a clue to how you're going. I mean, if you get 16 out of 20 or 5 out of 20, if you can't figure it out yourself, I'll tell you what you need to do, whether you need to go back and do some more work or whether you're ready to push on. So copy all those down and then come back for the final segment. Well, that's all for lesson 20. Just a reminder that if you'd like a copy of that exercise, rather than just copying it out off the screen, if you'd like a copy of the exercise and the answer sheet so that you can mark your own answers, just email me at writing-course@hotmail.com. And if you'd like a link to all the previous lessons, again, email me. I really hope that you're finding these lessons useful, and in particular, this section on dialogue punctuation. I know I'm taking it slowly. Some people may be wishing they could, well, you can skip it if you like. If you feel you know how to punctuate dialogue, go for it. Skip to whatever comes next. But I know from my experience as a writing mentor and as running a writing course that many people struggle with correct punctuation, particularly of dialogue. So I'm taking it slow for those who need it. If you don't need it quite so slow, jump to the next lesson, okay? And until that next lesson, it's goodbye and keep safe.